Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I think the board is visible. There it is. Yeah. Okay, great. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So today we have to start reading the surahs of the Quran after having done Surah Al-Fatiha. We decided that we're going to start from where? Short surahs, the last surahs. Why? Because why? Why? Yeah. That's right. We've already memorized them. We know them. We read them in our regular daily prayers. So it really is a good idea that we know the Quran that we are reciting in our prayer. That is, by the way, what the idea is. So you see, let's be clear. Are you finding some improvement in your understanding of Surah Al-Fatiha? Are you? You know, it's not just that you should know the meanings. You've got to be careful. You should be, mindful of what you're saying. So obviously, when the Imam is reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, you've got to keep up with his pace. But when you're doing it yourself, you can base the surah to your liking, the way you can manage it. So pause, think, and move ahead, right? That's the way of doing it. And it is amazing that this surah, which is repeated so very often, each time you do it properly, it gives you meanings. And the reason is the same. That is, it's like a food. Like, we have the appetite, we want guidance, and the guidance is given. Okay, now let's move on. The Quran is the response of the prayer that we make in Surah Al-Fatiha. In Surah Al-Fatiha, we say, Ihdinas Sirat al-Mustaqim. Guide us to the right path, right? And what is the right path? The Quran. The Quran is showing us the right path which the Almighty wants us to first understand and then follow. Okay? Now, in order for us to understand the Quran properly, even before we follow it, we ought to know what is the nature of the text of the Quran. In other words, what I'm saying is that, when you read a book, you ought to know, even before you start reading the book, what exactly is the style of presentation of the book. What is the category, the nature of the book? Is it poetry? Is it prose? Is it a novel? Is it a textbook? Is it a book of philosophy, etc.? Isn't it? So when we are reading the Quran, what exactly are we reading? Well, you would say, well, why are you trying to spend so much time on it? It's simple. It's a book of guidance. That's fine. It's a book of guidance, okay. But what is the nature of its presentation? How has this book of guidance been designed by the Almighty? I mean, it could have been a book of guidance in the form of poetry. It could have been a book of guidance in the form of a textbook. But this book is a book of guidance, and the nature that this guidance is provided is that it is actually, to make it simple, it's a story. It is a story which is also called, long story, the saga of the messengers mission of warning. Right? That is what the Quran is, the entire Quran. The entire Quran is actually describing how the messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the messenger of God, was able to warn, warn a nation through the message of the Almighty. Right? If you were to understand the entire Quran, all parts of the Quran, from A to Z, this is what the description is. If you will say the Quran is a book of guidance and just about that, you will not be able to understand all passages of the Quran. But if you know that the Quran, the entire Quran, is actually describing the manner this mission was accomplished. Now, what was that mission? Just to tell you briefly, the Quran tells us that God Almighty chose some people who were prophets, but amongst the prophets, He chose some who were messengers. Messengers, Rasul. They were Rasul, who were prophets, but in addition, they were Rasuls. And therefore, in their cases, it was decided that when they are going to present the message of Allah to their nation, and this message is going to be presented in a way that ultimately there would remain no doubts in the minds of the people, in the minds of the nation whom the message was presented. And if some of them are going to reject the message, if some of them are going to reject the message, they are going to be punished. Not just in the life hereafter, but in this very life as well. So the messengers come to warn about this punishment and the next punishment, right? So this was done by many messengers. And it was done for the last time by the last messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And the Quran is a description of it. All throughout the Quranic text, this is one theme you will find running through its entire text, right? That is what the Quran is. But that's not about all. That is not a complete statement because there's something in addition. You see, the Quran, the way it has been designed, it has been presented, it has been sequenced. We've talked about it before, but let me repeat it. It is not in the same sequence as it was revealed, right? So it's historical, chronological sequence. You know, historical sequence is also called chronological sequence. Has been changed by the Almighty. And we have a completely new sequence. And that's the only sequence that is valid. The Quran, Alhamdulillah, all Muslims, all throughout the world, even though they disagree on many things, they even disagree on whether tomorrow it's going to be Eid or not. But they don't disagree on the Quran and its sequence. So it's remarkable. Why? Because that's the way the Prophet ﷺ himself gave the Quran. And it was a completely altered sequence of the Quran, right? Now, how has this new sequence been designed? Marshalling. Marshalling means sequencing. Well, the way it has been designed is that the Quran has been divided into 7. Remember? What 7? Surah groups. Very good. Surah groups. And these groups are just quickly 1 to 5, Surah number 1 to Surah number 5, 6 to 9, 10 to 24, 25 to 33, 34 to 49, 50 to 66, And 67 to 114. Right. These are the 7 surah groups. Each group, within the group, the sequencing is historical, starting from the earliest to the latest. Right? So the same saga, story of Rasul was. So story of the messenger's mission of warning has been mentioned in the Quran in a way that it's divided into 7 groups. I don't want to call them chapters because the surah is a chapter. These are groups. Right? So, and the groups have been designed in a way that they begin from Meccan surahs and end with Medinan surahs. So the sequence is historical chronology. Right? Now that's what the Quran is. Before I start talking about the surahs, let me say one thing more. We know that the life of the Prophet, ﷺ, I'm talking about the life after he started receiving God's book. This life of his is divided into 2 parts. There is this Meccan part, right? The other is Madinan part. Now, this is a way of understanding the Quran. There are 6 different stages, phases through which his mission passed. 4 of them were in Mecca, and 2 of them were in Medina. So let's put them in boxes. In the Meccan period, because he was to accomplish this mission of warning, and then warning ultimately culminating into punishment for those who rejected. It followed a certain sequence. To begin with, it was a warning to the close ones, close people, relatives, people who really were, who mattered, who were at the helm of the affairs. And then the next stage was warning to all people. Because the idea is to warn about the fact that if they are going to reject this message, they'll be punished. Warn about the fact that if you're not going to take this life seriously, there's going to come another life after your death. You will be accountable. It's all about warning, right? So people have to be informed and they have to be made to be serious, because, life itself is glamorous, it attracts, it makes you casual, lazy, distracted. So it warns. And for those people who were the immediate addressees, they were also warned about an immediate punishment, right? So that was warning. And then in the third phase, it was completion of evidence. What is that? Completion of evidence. Any idea? What is completion of evidence? When a messenger claims that he's from God and that this message is God's message, and then there's going to be another life after this life, people would ask, what do you mean? Why should we accept it? What is the proof? What is the evidence? And you have a right to ask, by the way. That's why I keep asking you also, that you also have a right to ask. The problem with us is that we think that we are born Muslims and therefore we believe. Well, not really. We just follow what we have been informed by our elders. The way Christians are doing, the way Hindus are doing. We are also doing the same. You would only believe when you start taking the message seriously, and you start asking questions, and then you start getting the answers that are going to make you convinced. Oh God, got it. That's true. This is not going to be possible unless you are interested, get involved, and you know take pains to understand. So okay, so this phase is the phase when people were given evidences, they were given the message in a way that there would remain no reason, justifiable reason for anyone to doubt. Doubt, right? Evidence is complete. Just can we just need to give you an example? Uh, Musa alayhi salam comes and says, "You know what? I'm from God. I am God's messenger." And you know what was Pharaoh's reaction? Ha ha ha! What are you trying to tell me? Who are you? And then came a stick, a staff. He says, "You look at this. See what it does." And it turns into a snake serpent. The man is taken aback. So the evidence is then presented. That is what the Quran also does. People are doubting, people are asking, people are criticizing, and the Prophet is patiently uh, mentioning what the Almighty is revealing. And then come verses and surahs which complete evidence. That is, they are presented in a way that there remains no doubt in the minds of the people that it's making a lot of sense. It is indeed from him. And then comes the final stage, which is what? Remember, disassociation and migration. In this final phase of the Maccan period, uh, because the evidence was complete and the people were still not believing, and their attitude was stubborn, inflexible, uh, the Prophet and his companions, they declared that, okay, we've now got nothing to do with it. We've done our job. The message has been communicated. You know that it's truth. You're not interested. So now we are cutting off our contact with you. And we may talk about that surah, but it's a famous verse, so I'm just mentioning it. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. For you is your religion, for me is my religion. Get lost. I've got nothing to do with it. We have done enough to let you be convinced. And after this association is migration. The messenger migrates, right? The Quran tells us that whenever a messenger migrates from one place to another, the punishment against which they were being warned comes sooner or later. That's the process. It would always happen, right? So, migration. Now we come here. Madhan period. There are two phases. One is the phase of purification and cleansing. Now, what does it mean? Purification is what the purpose of religion is. If you ask what exactly is the message trying to achieve? What is the target? The target is purification, which is what is called in Arabic tazkiyah. Purification. It has actually two different targets to achieve, two objectives. One is to purify, and the other is to improve or to excel. In what? In spirituality and morality. That is purification. That's tazkiyah. And I've said this is the ultimate goal of the message. Every human being is addressed by God's message for the individual to be, allow me to say, tazkiyah fight, tazkiyah done on him. And when tazkiyah is done on an individual, what is happening is he's being purified and he is improving, excelling, progressing, right? This is still not complete. What it means is that we humans, we have got two aspects, two parts of our personality. One is a tremendous potential of what? Of spirituality. While this word is used differently by different people, but the meanings that I am giving to this word is to come close to God, to come as close to God as is possible. All of us, all humans, not just Muslims, all humans, John, Ping, Kumar, and Muhammad, Usman, all of them, they all have the same potential. Now, the trouble is that this potential that we have of spirituality and morality is threatened by our desires and our ego. It's a problem. So within us is an excellent human being who can come close to the Almighty and who can be good to fellow humans. That's what morality is, to be good to fellow humans. But the trouble is that within us, that's what the problem is. I hope you agree that's what the problem is. Within us, there are these desires which constantly disturb us. And there is this ego within us, which kind of, impedes the progress, stops, raises hurdles, obstacles in the way of this tremendous potential to achieve spirituality and morality and excel in it. That's what the trouble is. And what is God's message doing? It is purifying. Purifying. Purifying what? Your soul from the desires, your soul from ego, right? When your desires and your ego is checked, then what happens? You become spiritually and morally better and better to achieve excellence. Now, the relationship between the two is that desires and ego, they're kind of a brake. It's like you have an engine of a car or of a plane, which really has the potential of moving swiftly at a very high speed. But the trouble is that the brakes are not allowing the car to move quickly. So what are those brakes? These brakes. Desire and ego, and you are able to remove those brakes or control them, reduce them, and you perform well, both in the domain of spirituality and in the domain of morality. And that is exactly what the purpose of God's message is. Why? You know why? Why? Because Allah has told us that this life is temporary. All the good things over here are just for a certain while. And there's going to come another life. And in that life, if you really succeed because you perform well in this life, you will get to the place called the paradise on Jannah. And you cannot get to Jannah. You cannot get the paradise. Eternal man, eternal paradise. unless you have achieved this tazkiyah, purification, at least a minimum desirable level, right? So if you do it, you'll be eligible for the paradise, otherwise not. That is why, not surprisingly, the message of the Almighty targets tazkiyah, purification of the soul. And this is happening all throughout here as well. But when it comes to the Madanan part, it becomes more pronounced, more prominent, right? That is what is purification and cleansing. Cleansing is used, I mean, I've used this expression in a different sense. Cleansing means that, the companions of the Prophet, they were chosen by the Almighty to inflict the punishment, which is the final phase. The punishment which all messengers warned against would come at the end of their mission. The punishment would come either in the form of natural calamities, flood, earthquake, lightning, rain with stones, etc. But sometimes, if the followers, companions of a messenger are large in number, through their swords, through their military might. So those people who migrated along with the companion, they were purified, and there was this cleansing done, cleansing of the group. Because the Muslims who accompanied the Prophet some of them were great, very noble, pious, God-fearing, and some of them were hypocrites, and some of them were weak. So the weak and the hypocrites were to be sifted, and the pure were to be cleansed from them. And the idea was that the followers of the messenger should be a group of people who are clean, pure, and they do not have the contamination of such partners who are impure, right? Because this punishment will come through only those people who are deserving to be God's representatives, to be his weapons. Are you getting me? Right? So this is the fifth stage, and the last stage is that of punishment. The last part of the Quran is the part of punishment. Now, if you are reading the Quran, then you are actually reading one of these parts. Either surah belongs to this phase, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. That's what the Quran is. That is why I said that it is the story, the saga of the messenger's vision of warning. Within the description of that story, you have the mention of Salat, Zakat, Sharia, everything. But that is only a part of it, right? Allow me to say a smaller part, a relatively much smaller part of the entire description of the Quran. But the entire Quran, taken in totality, is the description of his prophetic mission, right? Now, that is what the Quran is. Now, the reason why I mention it is that whenever we talk about the Quran, any part, any surah, we will have this total picture in our mind so that we know where we are, right? So for today, what I've chosen is that I'm not running it, let's say this part. What I've chosen is that I am going to do Surah al-Asr, right? You might have memorized Surah even before Surah al-Asr. Surah al-Asr is Surah number 103. Yeah, 103. So, and we move from Surah al-Asr till the end. And after we've done that, and we'll move backwards. We'll see what we'll do. We'll decide what we'll do. But let's start from Surah al-Asr. Okay. Surah al-Asr is a Meccan surah, and it is talking about, well, it's here, the completion of evidence. And it says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. The time. I'm not translating it, I'm just giving you some information before I translate it. By time, like to say by God. You swear upon God. So you're saying by the time. When you say, I swear upon God, why do you say it? Although we should not say it. It's not a great idea. But when a person says it, you know why he says it? Well, you would say, I swear upon God, I am not late because I was lazy. There was a traffic jam, let's say. You say, I swear upon God. You know why? Because you want to convince me and others that what you're saying is correct. So why are you saying, I swear upon God? You know why? You're actually saying, God is an evidence. God knows what I'm saying is right. And the reason why the Almighty doesn't want us to swear upon God, we cannot swear upon anybody else, by the way. That is completely wrong. That would be shirk. The only swearing that we can do is swearing upon God. But that too is not encouraged. Why? If you are a truthful person, if you're a noble person, your statement should itself suffice. You don't need to swear. Those who are using the swearing upon God too often are actually not confident people. They know that these people are not going to believe in what I'm saying. So let me say this. But anyway, when we say, I swear upon God, what I'm actually saying is that I am presenting God as an evidence, as a witness. God knows that when I say that I was not late because I was lazy. There was a reason for it. Now my question, why would God swear upon anything? Why? Why would he do it? Okay, so how does it help? His creation, how would the creation help? He says that's my creation and I am swearing upon it. Who are you? Who are you? So why? For the same reason. What is the same reason? To present it as an evidence. To present whatever he is using as an oath, as an evidence. A very good example of it is a very famous surah. It begins like this. Yasin. What is the next? Wal Quran al-Hakim. What is the next? Innaka laminal mursaleen. Wal Quran al-Hakim. Hakim means wise. The wise Quran is an evidence. I swear upon the wise Quran. It is an evidence of what? Innaka laminal mursaleen. O Prophet, you are a messenger. See the point? How do we know that the Prophet is a messenger? Quran, the wise Quran. The wise Quran is an evidence that the one who has brought this Quran is God's messenger. See the point? So whenever the Quran is mentioning an oath, if God is swearing upon something, he is actually presenting that object, that reality as an evidence. The next question. I told you, if you are trying to understand the Quran, you've got to keep your brains open, firing, questioning. Why? Why? Or you're going to speak. So I think a better idea is to sleep at night and to to ask, to say, what is this? Uncle Khalid, I don't understand what you're saying. What you're saying is not making sense. And then we'll try to make sense of it. Because it's not me saying it. Quran is saying, understand it. Use your intellect. Go deep into it. Why don't you do it? The Quran says, why don't you do it? And we read it and we say, oh, yeah, okay. We're not doing it, we are doing it for sawab. I mentioned it. We read the Quran for sawab, for reward. And the result is that we don't bother to even understand it. Not realizing that all sawab is related to your attempt, your effort to understand it. You try to understand and you get reward. When you don't understand it, I don't want to say anything. If you're not trying to understand it, I'm not going to make any statement. You can imagine yourself. The Quran has come to guide you. You're not interested in its guidance. And you read it and you're going to get sawab. Well, at least I don't understand. How is it going to happen? So let's try to understand the Quran. The time. By the time. So can I translate it as the time is an evidence. Right? Are you with me? So when Allah says, what Quran al-Hakim, what he's saying is that the wise Quran is an evidence. Wal-Asr, the time is an evidence. What time? This clock? 8:30? No. The time of the people who have already left this world. And in their case too, some of the people, some of the times. And what is that time? The time of the earlier messengers. I'm making it brief. The time, by time that means the era. Understand what is an era? The historical period of the earlier messengers is an evidence. What happened in the case of the earlier messengers? What happened? They came, they delivered the message, there were people who rejected them, and then what happened? Bah! Punishment. The same punishment against which the messengers warned. So the Quran says, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Right? You know, whenever you have al in Arabic, like here, al, it is the of English. In English, when you will say, there was a man, you start the story like this. So it can be any man. There was a man. The man was very strong. Now the man in the second sentence is the same man who was mentioned in the first one. He is a definite person, right? Likewise, wal-Asr, the time is a particular time. Which of the earlier messengers? That time, that era, that part of human history. It is an evidence of the fact that innal insan, indeed, al-insan, indeed, this man, Lafi Husn, is doomed. Is in loss means is doomed. Or, the translation is in loss. He is going to face a loss. That is, he is doomed. Which man? Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab. these people who have already been presented with a message and they are rejecting it. They will not be spared. They are doomed, right? You might say, so it's not for us. Great. Alhamdulillah, it's not for us. Well, no, that's not the case. Understand what the Quran is saying, and then you will understand that it applies to us as well. But first, we must understand what the Quran is saying correctly. You see, you should not be scared unnecessarily, and you should not be spared unnecessarily. But you must understand the Quran the way it is. One of the problems with us Muslims is, one of the problems, that we have been scared so much that some people are actually scared to death. And the others say, well, they always scare us. So forget about that. That's what the problem is. Understand the Quran. The Quran is actually warning those people who are evil people. They had denied, rejected the Prophet after we had gone through all this process. And they were rejecting it. The evidence was clear. So the Almighty is saying that, you know what? al-Asr, the time of the earlier messengers is a clear evidence of what? That indeed this man is doomed as well. This man is doomed as well. This could be in brackets. The way Pharaoh was punished, the way the nation of Ad, Samud, Lut, Shuaib, Saleh, they were punished, they are also going to be punished. What is the proof? For us, the time, their era, their period. Get it? Quran, makes huge, a lot of sense when you try to understand it. Whenever you don't understand it, stop. Write a question. Think about it. You know what happens in our case? What do you say? And what do you think you'll get sawab? What are you getting? You're not even bothering to understand it, man. Wake up. The Quran is a book of guidance. It is telling you that God has a message. And that message has to be understood. How? By understanding that entire story, saga, which has been mentioned in 7 different groups and has been mentioned as a story which has gone through these 6 phases. Are you getting it? I know it's a bit tough to begin with. But the more you will think about it, the more we will talk about it, the more it's going to begin to make sense. And we have to understand the Quran. Why? Because it is what the Quran demands from us. Right? So are you with me until now? al-Asr, the time of the earlier messengers and the earlier nation, is an evidence of the fact that indeed this man is doomed as well. Right? This man, these people of Makkah, these rejectors of the truth. Okay. But obviously all is not blue. There is an exception there. Exception. What is that? And that's what the Quran always does. Illa allazina amanu. Illa, except. Allazina, those who. When you start understanding the vocabulary of the Quran, some words of the Quran are a little difficult because they are used on rare occasions. And they are, by their own very nature, they are difficult. Many are easy. So, get used to those easy words, simple words, so that when the Quran is read before you, or you read the Quran, you understand them. So, illa means except. You know it. Al-lazina, those who. Illa al-lazina, except those who. Amin. You know it. Those who believe. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and do good deeds. وَتَوَاصَوْا بالحق وتواصوا بالحق. They exhort each other towards the truth. وتواصوا بالصبر. وتواصوا بالصبر. And they exhort each other to patience or steadfastness. So the Quran says these people who are being presented with the Quran, they're gone. We are warning them. They're doomed. They want to save themselves from the doom, from the loss, from the punishment, which was given to the earlier messengers, that there is a way. What is that way? Except those who what? Believe. And Amil Salihat, do good deeds. Do good deeds. And exhort. You know what is exhort? They urge, exhort each other. Exhort each other to truth. That is to adhere to truth and exhort each other to patience, persistence, to be steadfast. To be steadfast. Steadfast means to continue to do the good thing you're doing. This is the way that the Quran has shown to the people who want to be saved, rescued from al-Khusr, from the loss, the doom, the punishment. By the way, this is what you ask for when you say, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. This is the right path. Those who believe, do good deeds, they exhort each other to the truth, to follow the true way, and they exhort each other to steadfastness, to be steadfast and to persevere with truth. Now, my question is that, so there are three conditions. Some people say there are four conditions. Well, I say there are three conditions. You are going to be rescued if you believe and you good deeds, do good deeds, and you exhort each other to truth. And the other part of it is that you exhort each other to steadfastness. To be steadfast in what? In truth. So let's take the first thing first. The first condition for any human to succeed or to avoid failure is that he should believe. Right? Tell me honestly. Do you understand? Does it make sense? We've heard it so many times. Let's be frank. Let's believe. But why? What is this? I mean, you go to a Christian community, they'll also believe Jesus is the Son of God, Trinity. We say we also believe. What is this? Have you ever critically examined it? But what is so great about it? God says you're going to be punished if you don't believe. Why? Why God? We don't see anything. And you say believe. Why do we believe? Because my mother says, Beta, believe. No, I want you to believe. Please. Okay, Mama. If you say it, I will believe. I'll please you. Smile. Don't worry, don't cry. But what is so great about it? Am I saying anything wrong? I'm telling you frankly, I mean, I have to understand Allah's book, and God's book. most important thing it says is believe. Actually, I mean, why? Why believe? I am seeing this man, sure, he's there. That's fine. That is the truth. If I say he's not there, then I'm lying. I'm cheating. Why do you say believe? Why believe? Tell me why. If for instance, an atheist asks you, why believe? What will you say? You know what you'll say? Uh, 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 let's talk about something else. What a good weather. Did you, by the way, see that movie? What about that match? You will try to nullify it. You try to avoid the subject. But the poor man is asking you a good question. You have made so much of noise. Believe, believe, believe. Why? You know, I'm trying to create within you this question that should disturb you. I mean, let's face it. Why? You say because this is right. And how do you know it's right? Because we're repeating it. This is circular argument. You know what is circular argument? I believe in God. You know why? Because my father says that he's there. And why does he say that he is there? Because he believes in God. And it goes like this. So, what is the point? So, what I would like you to understand most clearly is that belief is not blind faith. For God's sake, please don't ever have that notion in your mind. Blind faith means nothing. Blind faith for you is Allah, Akhirah, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Blind faith for a Christian is God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. What's the difference? They heard it from childhood days, the same stuff. You heard it this from your childhood days. What is the difference? Difference is argument, understanding. And this understanding you cannot have by fighting. It really is something that you have when you will understand, apply your mind, think, critically examine, worry, and keep thinking, keep understanding. And you will gradually find, oh, goodness me, it's making a lot of sense. You will demand what are the arguments. You will read the Quran to find the arguments. You will be worried. Because honestly, a statement, a hollow statement means nothing. So what I'm saying is, and I'm saying it on the basis of the Quran, that belief is based on understanding. Right? Don't think that I'm misleading you. I'm telling you what the Quran is saying. Belief is based on understanding. If you don't understand what I'm saying, look up for verse says, I think 163 and 164. And I want you to search through it. Just find out. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 163 and 164. You know, so one of the problems is that, we understand the Quran through speeches of people like me. This man keeps speaking over and over again. Is it? Does it start from Wa ilahukum ilahum wahid, 163, 162? Or is it 162? Wa ilahukum ilahum wahid. Have you reached it? Wa ilahukum ilahum wahid. What number is it? I have forced people to be 163 and 164. Oh, that's great. Well done, me. 163, 164. Now, read it in this week. And remember my words. Belief is based on understanding. You know what these two verses are doing? In the first verse, Allah is making a claim. Wa ilahukum ilahum wahid. Your God is one God. La ilaha illallah. There is no God except Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. His mercy is profound. His kindness is forever. And you know what the next verse is doing? Is giving you the evidence. And at the end of it, you know what it's saying? These are signs, evidences, liqawmin yaqilun, those who use their intellect. You get the point? What does it mean? What it means is that in the previous verse, what was mentioned as a creed, as a belief, the next verse is giving you the evidence, the proof of that belief. But to whom? Liqawmin yaqilun, those who use their intellect. So belief is based on understanding. The more you understand, the more you think, the more you feel confident and comfortable. You feel confident and comfortable. That is what belief is. You know, if you are not confident and you're not comfortable, and your belief is based on hearsay, on what you've heard from others, somebody who is going to challenge your belief, you'll get angry. You know why? Because you're empty. Because you will feel insecure. This man is threatening my belief. What belief? What belief? It's an emotional attachment to something that you have heard over and over again. If your belief is based on what the Quran says, evidence, then you will say, "Oh man, why are you angry? Why are you talking against my belief? Let's talk about it. Let me explain to you." Then your attitude would be different. I mean, I'm so surprised that there are people who say a few things against Islam and we're upset. Why are you upset? The poor chap is right. He's asking questions. He's saying, "What are you doing? What are you believing?" Say, "Come on, yeah, let's have a cup of tea. Let's talk about it." This is what the evidence is. Because this message is for everyone. And everyone needs to be informed about it. How on earth are you going to inform anybody about it when you don't even know yourself? Right? And I'm telling you, this is what the Quran says. All over the place, the entire text, that the text is based on understanding. Why? Because this understanding has not been given to us by Shaitan. It has been given to us by Allah. You know, you sometimes must be seeing that people like me, they are crazy. They're upset. That's the reason we are upset. What is happening to these people? What's going on? What Quran are they reading? What are they talking about when they're talking about their religion? Belief, man, is the truth. And the truth is something that can be shown. And people who don't believe, they are unreasonable people. They would cease to be reasonable. Right now, unfortunately, you know what is happening? It seems that the people who are reasonable, they don't believe. People who are unreasonable, they believe. My goodness, I don't know how God is tolerating it. You know what is happening to his religion? People who are reasonable, they say, "Why do we believe?" And people who are unreasonable, we believe. We believe. What is it? I mean, we believe on the basis of evidence. If you don't understand the evidence, let's talk about it. That is why, Shuret, I'm upset. I am sometimes angry. It's not happening. People are complacent. They're not interested. And the book of God is urging us to understand, to ponder, to reflect, to critically examine, and therefore to believe. So belief is, you know, there are emotions in belief. There are no problem. But emotions come later. It's first understanding. You understand, you get convinced, and then you get emotionally attached. What has happened to us is that we have gotten emotionally attached. Like Christians have gotten emotionally attached to their belief. Neither we nor they have any interest in understanding. So, I mean, don't be surprised that there are people out there who are saying that, you know, I may leave it to them. Leave it to these Muslims and the Christians to just follow their religion. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing in it. There's everything in it. There's everything. Right? So we will continue to study this surah. It's a very important surah because this surah tells us that if you want to save yourself from being doomed, being punished, then you will have to satisfy these conditions. And please start thinking. When you start thinking, you will have questions. And if you will not have questions, then I will raise questions and you will have answers. Because why? Because, as I said some time ago, God's message solves what? God's message solves the puzzle, the puzzle of life. This life is a puzzle. What is it? It is God's message that solves it. And it solves first and foremost through the understanding of, right? And you know, when you understand belief and the picture is clear to you, wow, the Quran says, you come to the light of truth. You understand it. And you say, oh, now I've got it. Otherwise, you're confused. You got no understanding. So, you know, the Quran has therefore got to be understood. And I today mentioned the fact that the structure, the presentation of the Quran has to be understood. Once you start understanding the Quran, I can assure you will start loving it. You will start making efforts to understand it more and more. And it would never bore you. And if you don't understand the Quran properly, you know, maybe you will read it because you think that you are getting some sawab. Maybe you will read it because you think that its recitation sounds good. It's good music to my ears. Maybe you will read it because you will say that it solves some of the problems that I had in life when I recite Surah Ayatul Kursi and do, you know, a problem was solved. But it is not come for that purpose. That's not what the Quran's purpose is. The Quran's purpose is to give you light, to enlighten you, to give you understanding, clarity, confidence, make you comfortable, and so that you make others comfortable. Right? I think my stamina is finishing. The petrol that I had put in my tank is about to finish, and I don't want to collapse. So let's finish here. Right? Okay. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات. Finished.